with 2024 winding down, we thought we would look back at a wish list you put together at the start of this year for both the men and women and determine how well everything panned out. Are you ready for that?
I will, but just quick on the camp cupcake or whatever. We all know that the January camp traditionally features mostly MLS players or players that have a break or players that aren't playing with their European teams and can get away and play these games. But I do think, once again, traditionally, they haven't been great opponents in that January camp because it's not a FIFA blackout date and it's very difficult to get it even in normal times. In these times where the United States is struggling to get good quality competition, games against Venezuela and Costa Rica, I don't think that they're going to do a whole lot for Pochettino, except for the fact that since he's a new coach, I think he will have eyes wide open and maybe be, in a sense, more accepting of the possibility of somebody coming on. And it would not surprise me in the least if somebody or somebodies come out of this January camp looking a whole lot more valuable in the eyes of Pochettino and his staff, despite the fact that it's not great competition and despite the fact that the quote-unquote full team will not be there. All right, let's do this.
Should we get to the wish list? Now,
Yes.
Again, this is something you came up with at the start of this year. And for those of you watching us, you'll be able to see how much I've changed in the last 12 months. My appearance completely different, my fashion, the way I dress.
And for those that aren't watching, there is Mosse standing in front of a Christmas tree with, oh, look, he's wearing a sweatshirt and a baseball cap.
Yes.
And there am I in a Christmas sweater and probably the same hat that I have. So, we have our aesthetics and we don't veer much away from them, regardless of what time of year it is. All right, let's do this.
All right. And incidentally, you will be coming up with a similar wish list for 2025 very soon on the pod. But as to your 2024 wish list, number one was, and this was focusing on the men, Copa/Olympic success. We obviously did not get that in Copa. The U.S. crashed out in the group stage of the Copa America. Olympics, a little bit better. They got out of their group, but then got thumped by Morocco in the quarterfinals. That led to Greg Berhalter's firing, Mauricio Pochettino's arrival. So what say you about that first one?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people would look at this as, I would put a check as a success because a lot of people feel like we took a step back in order to go two steps forward with Pochettino. I do think that this did not come to fruition in that the failure of Copa America, that's what this was relative to. I was wishing that this team did well in Copa America. They didn't. The silver lining for a lot of us, including myself, is that if you're going to make a change, and they did, and fairly so, you bring somebody in that, fills us with anticipation, fills us that inspires us, and I am feeling much better about this team going forward under Pochettino. Still not a whole lot of time. So, I guess this was one of those that didn't come to fruition, but ultimately we ended up, I guess, better off in the long run, Mosse.
Number two, focusing on the women, Emma Hayes and youth gelling. Remember, Emma did not arrive until June. The first part of the year was Twyla Kilgore in charge. The U.S. won the Gold Cup under her. Then Emma took over in June. And in 15 games under her, the U.S. has had 13 wins and 2 draws, including winning the Olympic gold medal. I think it's been a spectacular year for the U.S. women. They got their mojo back, reestablished themselves, made a mockery of the narrative that they were a spent force in the women's game and weren't producing good players anymore. The U.S. is loaded with young talent. The future couldn't be brighter.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any way to paint this in anything as anything else as a absolute success. Big old check mark there. Emma came through and did what we needed to do in terms of the changing of the guard. We saw new faces. We saw young faces. We saw players be thanked and then moved on, which is what needed to be done. And ultimately, returned us to the top very, very quickly in terms of being the best and winning, in this case, from the Olympic standpoint, and setting us on a trajectory back to hopefully glory when it comes to the World Cup. So well done to Emma Hayes and the U.S. women's national team and returning to form and doing it very quickly and living up to what this soccer wish was.
Number three, Tyler Adams back ASAP. Tyler began this year banged up. He ends it starting for Bournemouth, but along the way, he did miss a lot of time. So how would you rate this one?
Yeah, I don't think that this is... I don't think that this has come to fruition. while we have seen him come back, he certainly hasn't come back in the dominant way. There are still questions right now as to how good this new version, this physical new version of him can be. I don't think that Pochettino and this team has moved on, but I do think that they recognize that if he's back, great. But I think this one is still a jury out type of situation, and so I guess that wish list would just continue on. But I don't think that box was checked as to Tyler Adams coming back, and more importantly, the Tyler Adams that we have seen reappearing.
Number 4, new number 9 emerges for the U.S. men. Ricardo Pepi's not new, but he did level up this year to the point where he's getting linked to the likes of Liverpool and Bayern Munich. So is that enough for you to qualify this as a success? Yeah,
our producer Sean says count it, in that he wants it to qualify as a success and a check. I do not. I think that it is still a wide open position, and as well as Pepe has come on for club and for country of recent games, I still think that we do not have someone that has taken it with both hands and said, this is mine, and you can pry it from my cold dead hands going forward. And that includes Pepe, that includes Balogun, who else? Brandon Vasquez, all of the usual suspects. Sargent came in, got some opportunity, didn't score the goals, then got hurt and all this kind of stuff. So again, I think the number 9 position continues and will continue into 2025 being an open position. And who knows? Maybe it's Pepe's by the end of 25. A year from now, we're sitting here going, all right, now it's all about Pepe, but I'm not ready to say that in the least right now.
A lot of editorializing by Sean in today's rundown. Have you noticed that? He's full of takes.
Well, he's it's getting into the Christmas spirit for Sean. He takes some liberties here as we get kind of willy-nilly towards the end of the year. So
he's also incredibly stressed by this upcoming Tennessee-Ohio State playoff game.
That's true.
You noticed that?
Yep, I've seen it.
Number 5 on the wish list, Gio Reyna finds new club. At the start of this year, he did move to Nottingham Forest on loan. That was a disaster. He's back at Dortmund. For the most part, has been out of the mix this first half of the season. Now, something happened today, which was interesting, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Nevertheless, it's only one game. So as 2024 draws to an end, still feels like Gio Reyna's club situation very up in the air.
Yeah, and while at that point we were talking about him moving and finding a new club. And I think we're adamant, and we were not alone at that moment because it was not going well. I guess we can zhuzh it a little and say, okay, or reestablishing himself at his own club. And notwithstanding the fact that he started today, like you said, we'll talk about that here in a second. I don't think that this came to fruition. I still think that Gio Reyna, there are questions and question marks about what he is in this version. And again, we've just talked about Pochettino, where if you're not there, it's a problem. I do think that he values him. I do think that he rates him, but there is still a question, as there will become this January transfer window, and certainly next summer, relative to Gio Reyna finding a different place where he is a consistent starter.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.